All right, welcome to this explainer. I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you're 27 years old. You've got about 18 grand in the bank. You're tracking every single penny on an app with all those colorful little charts. And you have this distinct, sinking feeling that you're doing absolutely everything right, but you're going nowhere. You know the feeling, right? You're learning about money the way, well, pretty much everyone in 2026 does, scrolling through reels, threads, listening to influencers with their ring lights. But what if the algorithm is actually engineered to keep you running in place? Today, we're going to completely dismantle this whole illusion of performative wealth and look at the hidden, honestly kind of quiet realities of how actual wealth is built.
Okay, so let's dive right into this. Capital is not earned, it is preserved. Everything else is noise. Now, you might be wondering where that comes from. I'll tell you right now, it does not come from some trending TikTok. Actually, it comes from a $4 water-damaged paperback printed way back in 1961, written by a guy whose descendants literally still hold land across 4 states. Imagine finding this at an estate sale, right? You open it up and the very first page just completely shatters all our modern algorithm-fueled anxiety about money. It tells us that capital isn't this thing you constantly hustle and grind to earn. It's something you protect. You preserve it. It's basically the absolute polar opposite of modern financial culture. Which brings us to section 1, the old money mindset. So to really escape the algorithm, we've got to wrap our heads around this old money mindset. And hey, this isn't about, castles or inherited trust funds. It's really a structural approach to capital itself. Think about it. Today's culture is loud, it's anxious, it's obsessed with broadcasting every little success. Old money, it's quiet, it's stoic, it's focused entirely on long-term preservation. Just look at how differently these two worlds define reputation. In 2026, everybody wants a brand. But a brand is really just a performance, right? It's constantly measured by likes, comments, engagement, and it can be destroyed by a shifting trend in seconds. It's exhausting. Old money, though, protects a name. And a name is simply what the room believes about you when you're not in it. It's built up over years and years of small, correct decisions made totally under the radar. It really just asks one single question. Can this person be trusted with something important? Out of that mindset, we get these 5 profound rules. Number 1, never touch the principal. You find a pool of capital that you will never spend. You treat it like ancestral land. You only sell the crops, not the dirt itself. Number 2, income is not your identity. Seriously, stop performing your earnings for an audience. Rule 3, protect your name above all else, even over your capital. Number 4, make decisions with a 20-year horizon, simply because time cannot be repurchased. Once it's gone, it's gone. And finally, Rule 5, never let them see the count. Invisibility is your best protection. That flashy display of wealth you see online, that is literally just the first expenditure of a deeply insecure person. All right, moving on to section 2. 2 paths diverge at the starting line. Now, to see how these rules actually play out in the real world, our sources give us this absolutely fascinating case study. Picture 2 22-year-olds. They just took the exact same entry-level logistics job in the exact same city. Their first after-tax paycheck is identical, $1,847. But now, what's really interesting here is how completely unglamorous the winning moves are from this exact moment. Let's look at Path A, our builder. They set up an automated $200 transfer straight to a Roth IRA. It leaves the day after payday, so they literally never even see it. They rent a room in a shared apartment for $740 a month. Done. Now, Path B, the spender. They convince themselves they need their own space, right? So they sign a lease for a $980 one-bedroom. Then they justify a $387 car loan. Pretty soon, the spender has racked up over $1,000 in credit card debt at like 24.99% interest. The massive difference in their life trajectories, it starts right here with these tiny, unglamorous decisions. And that leads perfectly into section 3, the compounding gap as a quiet force. Because here's the thing, these tiny decisions, they don't just add up, they compound. It is a quiet, ruthless force. Over the next 18 years, the gap between these two people blows up from a slight divergence into a completely different lived reality. Let's just track the builder's patience over that time. The builder isn't crossing their fingers hoping to get lucky. They're relying on repetition. At 25, they buy a duplex in a secondary market. An algorithm would never recommend this place because it's definitely not photogenic. At 29, they get a raise, but, and this is key, their lifestyle doesn't inflate. They just bump their 401k up to 9%. By 30, the cash flow from that first duplex helps them buy a triplex. Fast forward to 37, they execute a 1031 tax-deferred exchange, rolling the duplex equity into a 4-unit property. Guys, it is boring. It does not make for a viral social media post. But wow, is it devastatingly effective? Okay, let's pause and look at the brutal math at age 30. The builder is sitting on a net worth of $134,000. They own 2 properties, throwing off over $1,400 in monthly cash flow. And the spender? Well, they moved in with a partner, the relationship went south, and they got stuck holding the bag on a really expensive lease. To cover life's emergencies, they actually cashed out their 401k, took that painful 10% penalty, and now they are drowning in $9,200 of credit card debt. Their net worth? It's practically been erased. Now, let's fast forward another decade to age 40 and see how this all played out. The difference is honestly staggering. Our builder just crossed the $1 million net worth mark. They've got 4 real estate units, and their passive income could literally replace their salary tomorrow if they wanted it to. They have actual concrete options in life. The spender, on the other hand, they're completely functional. They go to work, they pay their minimums, but their net worth is barely hovering under $60,000, and most of that is locked up in a 401k they can't even touch. Their margin for error is paper thin. Just let this visual sink in for a second. The distance between these two people, who, remember, started at the exact same time with the exact same job and the exact same paycheck, is now over $1 million. And where did it all start? It all stems from a seemingly insignificant $187 a month redirected early on. One person built a system for preservation, and the other built a system for spending. It's wild. Let's jump into Section 4, Milestones of Net Worth Beyond $1 million.
So what actually happens after you hit that $1 million mark? Well, the straightforward math of wealth starts to take a back seat, and this profound psychological evolution kicks in. Because what happens when you run out of practical things to buy? Look, when you're at zero, money is basically oxygen. You either have enough to breathe or you're suffocating. But when you cross over into high net worth, you start to realize that spending was actually never the goal in the first place.
But before you even get there, you hit this phase our sources call the confidence plateau. This is that moment where you're running the numbers on a spreadsheet at midnight and it hits you. 40 years of disciplined saving at your current income, it's fine, but it isn't true freedom. You realize your salary is essentially just a ceiling dressed up as a floor. So you pivot. You start quietly building leverage, maybe a side business, some rental properties. You finally reach this tipping point where your assets start returning more in a single year than your actual paycheck does. You've officially transitioned from buying assets to letting your assets buy other assets. And then it happens. It's just a random Tuesday, you refresh your brokerage app, and boom, you hit $1 million. You're expecting fireworks, right? But instead, you get this quiet little identity crisis. Why? Because $1 million at a safe 4% withdrawal rate is only $40,000 a year. That is definitely not absolute freedom. It's just a really solid starting point. You realize the milestone was never the destination at all. It's just a proof of concept. It just proves your system works. Happiness was never the point of the money. Having options was. So the crucial point is what happens next. When you cross into, say, $5 million, the entire texture of the game shifts. You aren't really building capital anymore. You are positioning it. You might enter one deal that could return $800,000 and another deal that might literally return zero, but you do it anyway because one inherently de-risks the other. You're managing correlation at this point. You're moving capital around a board rather than trading your physical hours for a paycheck. Which brings us to our final act, Section 5, the ultimate currency of time and power. As we enter these absolute highest echelons of wealth, money completely stops measuring traditional value. It's no longer about what you can afford to buy. It's about how you interact with the very fabric of the economy itself. Look at this number, $94 million. Imagine you're 61 years old and this is your net worth. The exact dollar amount, totally irrelevant to your daily life. Honestly, maybe 3 people on Earth even know that exact number. At this level, you aren't thinking in financial quarters or even years anymore. You're thinking in massive demographic cycles, infrastructure shifts, credit cycles. You're positioning yourself ahead of them the way an expert sailor reads the weather 3 days out. And this quote right here brilliantly captures the ultimate truth of high-level capital. Above 50 million, money stops measuring your worth. It starts measuring your reach. At this altitude, power becomes incredibly compressed. Picture sitting in a board meeting with 5 other people who hold enough combined capital to entirely reshape a mid-sized economy. You speak for maybe 4 minutes, you ask exactly 2 questions, the entire room calibrates to your position, and you literally leave the building before lunch is even served. Your money has completely transformed into this tool of profound distance and unimaginable reach. But hey, let's bring this all the way back down to earth, right back to the starting line. Somewhere right now, someone is standing in a grocery store aisle looking at their phone. They've got a checking balance of exactly $1,247, so they put the good olive oil back on the shelf and grab the store brand instead. They probably think this is just a story about money, but it's not, because the machine of compounding doesn't care if you feel ready. It simply opens for business every single morning, taking whoever shows up consistently, patiently, and without flinching. So the question isn't really whether you want to be wealthy. The real question is, are you willing to pay the psychological cost of the gap between who you are today and who you must become to quietly hold the line?